Let go of my son. Now. Brent Carter, a billionaire and single father, stood frozen at the threshold of his mansion. The briefcase slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a thud, but he didn't blink. In front of him, his 6-year-old son, Eli, was crouched near the base of the staircase, tiny arms wrapped protectively over his head, trembling. Towering over him was Maya Williams, 29, the family's live-in housekeeper. Her hand gripped Eli's arm, and in the other, she held a towel blood-streaked at one end. Brent surged forward. I said let him go. Startled, Maya released Eli immediately. The boy bolted toward Brent and clung to him, sobbing into his shirt. Brent looked down. His son's face was blotched with tears, but what turned his blood to ice was the red swelling on Eli's forehead. Brent turned to Maya, rage building fast. What the hell happened? Maya held up her hands. Mr. Carter, please. He slipped in the bathroom. I was trying to help him up. You call this help? Brent snapped, pointing at the towel. You think I'm stupid? No, sir. Then explain why my son looks like he's been thrown against a wall. I didn't hurt him, Maya said firmly, though her voice trembled. I would never hurt Eli. He panicked. He ran, slipped. I was trying to stop the bleeding. Brent didn't answer. He looked down at Eli, his voice gentler. Son, what happened? Tell Daddy. Eli hesitated. His eyes darted toward Maya, then back to his father. There was a long pause, and then he whispered, She hit me. Brent stiffened. She what? Eli clung tighter. She got mad. I dropped the vase. She hit me with the towel. No, Maya gasped. That's not true. Eli baby, why would you? Brent raised a hand to silence her. Not another word. But, get out of my sight, he snarled. If you so much as breathe near him again. Maya stepped back, stunned. I didn't do this. Oh. Brent ignored her. Eli, we're going to the hospital. St. Agnes Memorial's pediatric ward was quiet, antiseptic, and cold. Brent sat in the waiting area, Eli curled against him like a small bird seeking shelter. Brent kept his arms around the boy, his mind racing, looping through images, doubts, flashes of anger. Dr. Reese, the attending pediatrician, approached. Mr. Carter? Brent stood, tense. Tell me what you found. She was calm, but her words dug deep. No signs of concussion, but the bruising on his arms and upper shoulder is not consistent with a single fall. Some marks are at least 48 hours old. Brent's brow furrowed. He's been with her the whole time. Dr. Reese gave a subtle nod. There's also a wrist abrasion, possibly from restraint. Brent clenched his jaw. Are you filing a report? We already have. CPS will be notified. He looked down at Eli, who stared off blankly. Brent gently squeezed his hand. You did good, buddy. Eli said nothing. Back home, the atmosphere was toxic with silence. Brent paced the kitchen while Maya stood near the entrance, arms at her sides. She looked younger than ever, vulnerable, but Brent wasn't moved. You hurt my son, he said. No, I didn't, she replied, steady despite the quiver in her voice. He's lying. Don't you, Dare? I'm not calling him a liar, she said quickly. I'm saying he's scared. Kids, they say things when they're afraid. Exactly, Brent snapped. He was afraid of you. Number. Maya's voice grew firmer. He was afraid of you. Brent froze. Ask yourself, she continued. Why would a child lie about something like this, unless he feared your reaction? He blinked. So now this is my fault? I didn't say that, she said, softer now. But I know Eli. He dropped your wife's vase. He panicked. He knew you'd be upset. He's been missing you, Brent. He didn't want you angry at him. Brent didn't respond. Did you even ask him about the vase? She said gently. Brent turned away. Upstairs, Eli was in bed, his eyes still open. Brent sat beside him. The boy looked nervous. Eli, Brent said quietly, I need you to tell me the truth now. Not what you think I want to hear, just the truth. The boy's lip quivered. I promise you, Brent said, I won't be mad, no matter what. There was a long pause. Then Eli whispered, I dropped the vase, and I was scared you'd yell at me. So, I said she hit me. Brent stared at his son, stunned. I'm sorry, Eli said. She didn't. She helped me. She said not to worry. Brent swallowed hard. His throat tightened. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I thought you'd be mad at me. Or go away again. Brent pulled Eli close. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not mad at you. I promise. He sat beside his son long after the boy fell asleep, torn between guilt and shame, between rage at himself and the slow understanding that maybe, just maybe, he had gotten everything wrong. And downstairs, Maya packed her things in silence, unaware that truth had finally come to light too late, and not without scars. Maya stood in the dim hallway, suitcase half-zipped, one hand resting on the polished oak railing. Her heart thudded beneath her ribcage, not from guilt, but from the sting of injustice. She stared at the front door for what felt like hours, waiting for the sound of sirens, the knock of police who might never come. She had almost left, almost. Then she heard the soft patter of footsteps behind her. Maya. The voice was low, uncertain. Brent's. She turned slowly, her eyes guarded. Yes, Mr. Carter? He looked exhausted. Not in the way men look after a long day, but in the way they look after breaking something that can't be fixed. His tie was loosened, his shirt wrinkled. His expression, once rigid and accusatory, was cracked by something she didn't expect, remorse. He took a breath. Eli told me the truth. Her face didn't change, but her arms slowly dropped to her sides. I see. Brent rubbed the back of his neck. He was scared. Thought I'd be mad about the vase, said he, panicked. I figured, she said simply. Silence settled between them like a fog. It wasn't the kind of silence that begged to be broken, it was the kind that needed to breathe. I owe you an apology, he said finally. A real one. Maya raised an eyebrow. Do you? Brent flinched. I accused you of something terrible. I believed my son, which of course I should have. But I didn't stop to question the fear behind his words. I didn't listen to you. No, she agreed. You didn't. I reacted, he said. I didn't think. You thought plenty, Maya said, voice sharp now. You thought I was capable of hurting him. You thought the worst. He swallowed hard. I did. Why? She asked. Because I'm young? Because I live in the staff quarters? Or because I'm black? The question hit like a slap. Brent blinked, mouth slightly open, words caught in his throat. She didn't wait for an answer. You hired me to help raise your child. And the moment things didn't look right, you saw me as the threat. Not even for a second did you give me the benefit of the doubt. Brent looked away, shame shadowing his features. You're right. Maya nodded once, the motion stiff. So now what? He looked at her. I'm not asking you to stay. I'm not entitled to that. But I want you to know. I'm sorry. Maya exhaled through her nose. Her grip on the suitcase loosened. I loved that kid, she said quietly. Still do. And not just because it's my job. You think I stayed through your grief, your silences, your absence, because of the paycheck? Eli needs someone to see him. I saw him. Brent's voice was hoarse. I see him now. Good, she said. But it might be too late for that to matter. A few minutes passed. Brent stayed still while Maya turned back to her suitcase. She zipped it slowly, as if each tooth was a decision. Where will you go? He asked. I have options, she said, not looking at him. Families who call back. People who trust me. Do you trust me? He asked. She paused. Not tonight. He nodded, accepting it. He deserved that. As she moved toward the door, Eli's voice drifted down the stairs. Maya? She and Brent both looked up. The boy stood on the landing, pajamas rumpled, eyes still puffy from crying. He clutched the railing like it was the only thing holding him upright. Why are you leaving? Maya knelt on instinct. Eli, sweetheart, I need to go for a while. But why? His lip trembled. I told Daddy the truth. I fixed it. Oh, baby, she said, heart twisting. This isn't your fault. It's just something grown-ups have to sort out. I'm sorry I lied, he whispered. I was scared. I know you were. She opened her arms and he ran to her. She wrapped him up tightly, like it was the last hug she might ever give. Brent stood aside, watching the scene with aching regret. For the first time in years, he truly saw the cost of his assumptions, not just on Maya, but on the boy clinging to her. Maya kissed Eli's forehead. You be strong, okay? And remember your voice matters, even when it shakes. What do you think of Maya? If you admire her, give her a like. And don't forget to comment where you're watching from. Someone nearby might be watching this video too. Eli sniffled. Will you come back? She glanced at Brent. I don't know, she said. Maybe. Later that night, Brent sat alone in his study. The fire in the hearth crackled, casting long shadows on the walls. On his desk lay a framed photo. Eli and Maya, at last year's pumpkin patch. They were both laughing real, unguarded joy. He stared at the image for a long time, then picked up his phone and dialed. Janine, he said when the line connected. I messed up. I need your help. What happened? She asked. I let my fear speak louder than my reason. I hurt someone who didn't deserve it. Janine's tone softened. Then you fix it. With action, not just words. Brent nodded to himself. Yeah, I plan to. Good, she said. Because trust, once broken, doesn't rebuild itself. You'll have to earn it. I will. He hung up, took the photo in his hands, and sat back. Outside, the wind howled softly through the palm trees. In the quiet, he heard his son's words again. I told Daddy the truth. I fixed it. But some truths came too late. And some wounds didn't bleed, they lingered. He didn't know if Maya would ever forgive him. But he knew one thing. He would never let silence speak louder than truth again. The sun rose heavy and slow over the Carter estate, casting golden light across the sprawling lawn and the empty driveway where Maya's car had once been parked. Brent sat in the kitchen, untouched coffee steaming beside a half-eaten piece of toast. He hadn't slept, not well. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the look in Maya's face, wounded, proud, and quiet. Eli shuffled in, clutching his stuffed tiger by one ear, his hair tousled from restless sleep. Daddy? He asked, climbing up onto a stool. Is Maya coming back today? Brent paused, the question hitting harder than expected. No, buddy, not today. Tomorrow? Brent sighed. I don't know, son. Eli looked down, fingers fidgeting with the tiger's tail. I didn't mean for her to leave. I just didn't want you mad at me. Brent leaned in, touched his son's hand. I know. You were scared, and I should have known better. I should have protected both of you. Eli's voice was barely audible. Can we say sorry to her? Brent managed a thin smile. I hope we'll get the chance. That afternoon, Brent sat in his home office, poring over documents that no longer held weight. Contracts, projections, reports, they all blurred. His assistant had cleared his schedule for the next few days. Family emergency, they'd said. It was more than that. It was a moral reckoning. He pulled up Maya's employment file. Her references had been glowing, letters full of praise, of gratitude, of the kind of trust that had once seemed absolute, and yet he had torn it apart the moment fear clouded his judgment. He picked up the phone and called Janine again. She's not answering her phone, he said without preamble. Janine exhaled. You expected her to? I need to make this right. Brent, you need to stop making this about what you need. That silenced him. She's the one who was wronged. You don't get to fix this with a bouquet and a sorry. I know, he said softly, but I can't just let her disappear. She means something to Eli, to me. Then show it. Not with words, with effort. 3 days passed. Maya hadn't returned his calls. She hadn't replied to his emails. Brent had left voicemails, each one more measured, more raw, more real than the last. Still, nothing. It was Friday evening when he finally drove across town to a modest brownstone in a quiet neighborhood near Culver City. He wasn't sure she was there, but the address matched one of her old tax forms. He knocked. No answer. He waited. Then just as he turned to leave, the door creaked open. Maya stood there, barefoot, in a plain gray tee and faded jeans. Her eyes were tired but clear. Her hair was pulled back. Her expression unreadable. Brent cleared his throat. She didn't say anything. I didn't come to ask for forgiveness, he said quickly. That's yours to give, or not. I came to return something. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, slightly worn sketchbook. Maya's breath caught. He drew this last night, Brent explained. Said it was a picture of his family. You were in it. She didn't reach for the book. Her arms stayed crossed. What do you want, Mr. Carter? He hesitated. I want to understand. I want to listen, not to defend myself. just to hear you." She looked at him for a long, still moment. Then she opened the door wider. 10 minutes. Inside, the apartment was small but neat. A kettle whistled softly on the stove. Brent stood awkwardly near the window, while Maya poured tea into 2 mugs. "You don't have to pretend this is okay," he said finally. "You have every right to hate me." "I don't hate you," she said. "I just don't trust you." He nodded. "That's fair." 1. She set the mugs down and sat across from him. "Do you know how many times I've been assumed guilty first, innocent later?" Brent met her gaze. "No, I don't, but I believe you." She didn't blink. "When you walked in that night, you didn't even ask. You saw Eli crying, and you decided it had to be me. And the worst part? I wasn't surprised. That kind of judgment, I've seen it before." "I wish I could say I was different," Brent said, voice low. "But I failed. And not just you, I failed Eli." Maya nodded. "You did." Silence. "I loved being there," she said after a moment. "Not for the house, not for the money. For him. He made my days lighter. And when he lost his mom, I tried to give him pieces of comfort that no one else could. But you saw me as the help. And when push came to shove, that's all I ever was to you." Brent's face fell. "I want to do better," he said. "Not to get you back. Just to be better. For Eli." She sipped her tea, then start by telling him the truth. "Kids know more than we think." "I will." He stood to leave, placing the sketchbook on the table. "If you ever want to visit him, or talk to him, you'll always be welcome." She didn't reply. As he walked to the door, she said softly, "Brent?" He turned. "I don't know if I can forgive you, but I believe you mean what you said." He nodded once. "That's more than I deserve." And with that, he left. Back home, Eli was waiting by the window, tiger in hand. "Did you find her?" he asked. Brent knelt down. "I did." "Is she mad at me?" "No," Brent said, pulling him into a hug. "She's not mad. She just needs time." Eli hugged him tighter. "I miss her." "I know, buddy. So do I." Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves. Inside, father and son sat in quiet reflection, holding tight to the pieces of something broken, trying, together, to find the shape of repair. The following week passed with a strange quietness that settled like dust over the Carter estate. Maya's absence was more than noticeable. It was embedded into the rhythms of the house. Eli asked about her every evening, and each time, Brent answered gently but honestly, "She's still thinking, buddy. We have to give her time." 1. Brent tried to hold it together for Eli, filling the days with hikes through Griffith Park, movie nights with extra popcorn, and even a failed attempt at baking cookies that turned into a doughy disaster. They laughed. They bonded. But when the house grew still, and bedtime stories gave way to silence, Brent could feel the guilt returning, settling in beside him like a shadow he couldn't shake. On a rainy Thursday morning, Brent sat in the living room, reading an old paperback he'd found in the den, something Maya had once been caught rereading during a quiet afternoon. He remembered teasing her gently, "You already know how it ends, don't you?" And she'd replied, "It's not about the ending. It's about what changes between the lines." The memory made his chest ache. Then came a knock at the front door. Brent stood slowly, unsure if it was instinct or hope that moved his feet. He opened it, and there she was. Maya. Her hoodie was damp from the rain, curls frizzed at the edges. In her hand, she held a small gift bag, its tissue paper slightly wilted from moisture. "Hey," she said softly. Brent blinked. "I know I said I needed time," she continued. "But I've been thinking a lot. About Eli, about you, about everything." He stepped aside quickly. "Come in, please." She hesitated only a moment before entering, brushing the water from her sleeves. Eli's footsteps came thundering down the stairs before Brent could call him. "Maya?" She barely had time to kneel before he flung his arms around her. She hugged him tightly, eyes closed, breathing in the little boy's scent of cotton and soap. "I missed you so much," Eli mumbled into her shoulder. "I missed you too, honey," she whispered. "Every day." Brent watched from a few feet away, his heart full and fractured all at once. Eli pulled back, beaming. "Are you coming back to stay?" Maya glanced up at Brent before answering. "Not right now, sweetheart, but I came to see you, and I brought you something." She handed him the bag, and he tore into it with gleeful curiosity. Inside was a simple wooden puzzle, the kind that challenged but didn't frustrate, a quiet metaphor, perhaps, for healing. "I thought we could do it together," she said. Eli nodded furiously and dashed to the coffee table to open it. Maya stood. Brent approached. "Thank you," he said, "for coming back, even if just for this." She looked at him for a long moment. "It's not about forgiveness," she said. "Not yet. It's about Eli. He deserves stability. And honesty." Brent nodded. "You're right. And I want to be better for him and for anyone who walks through my door." They moved into the living room, where Maya sat beside Eli, helping him sort edge pieces from corners. Brent sat across from them, silent, watching. There was something sacred about the scene, something quiet and warm, not perfect, but real. At one point, Eli asked a question that caught both adults off guard. "Daddy," he said, not looking up from the puzzle, "did you ever get in trouble for something you didn't do?" Brent paused, then slowly said, "Yes, once, a long time ago." "What happened?" "I stayed quiet, let people think what they wanted, but it hurt, and I wished someone had believed me." Eli frowned. "Did someone say sorry?" Brent's gaze flicked to Maya, then back to his son. "Eventually. But it took a while. Sometimes grown-ups mess up. What matters is if they try to fix it." Maya looked at Brent, a little surprised. There was sincerity in his voice that hadn't been there before, an earned humility. They finished the puzzle in silence. The last piece clicked into place with Eli's triumphant, "Yes." As dusk settled, Maya stood. "I should go." Eli looked crestfallen. "Can't you stay for dinner?" Maya smiled gently. "Next time, okay?" She turned to Brent. "He's doing better." "He is. Because of you." "No," she said. "Because he's stronger than both of us." Brent walked her to the door. Before she stepped out, she turned back. "Brent, don't let him carry this. He's a child. Let him just be." Brent nodded slowly. "I will. And Maya, thank you for not shutting the door." She gave a small, tired smile. "I didn't do it for you." He nodded again. "I know." As she disappeared into the rain, Brent stood there a long while, letting the cool air brush against his face. Ailey appeared beside him, quiet. "Daddy, is she mad at us?" Brent looked down. "She's not mad. She's just hurt. And hurt takes time to heal." Eli leaned against him. "We'll fix it." Brent wrapped an arm around his son's shoulder. "Yes, we will," he whispered, "one piece at a time." It had been 2 weeks since Maya's visit. 2 weeks of soft progress and quiet conversations, of puzzle nights and slow, healing routines. Brent had started picking Eli up from school personally, no longer delegating it to staff. He was present at bedtime, present at breakfast. And, perhaps for the first time since his wife died, present in his own heart. But the emptiness still lingered in the corners of the home, not from grief now, but from the absence of someone who had, for a time, filled in the fractured parts of their lives. Brent didn't dare reach out again. He'd promised himself that if Maya wanted space, he would honor it. Yet every night, when he passed the door to her old room, he paused. Just a second. Just long enough to remember the sound of her laughter echoing faintly down the hallway. One Wednesday afternoon, Brent was in the garden with Eli, trying and failing to build a miniature birdhouse. Eli giggled as the tiny wooden walls collapsed again. "You're not very good at this," he said cheerfully. Brent laughed. "Thanks, buddy. I was hoping you'd say that after we finished. I think Maya would have finished it by now." Brent's smile dimmed. "Yeah, she probably would." Eli looked up at him, serious. "Can I call her?" Brent hesitated. "I don't want to make her feel like we're pressuring her." "She said I could talk to her anytime," Eli said matter-of-factly. "And I want to tell her something." Brent looked at his son's determined face and nodded. "Okay, go ahead." Eli ran inside and came back with Brent's phone. He tapped a few times and held it to his ear. Brent watched from across the patio, heart lodged somewhere near his throat. "Hi, Maya," Eli chirped when the line picked up. "Guess what, we're making a birdhouse and it's going really bad." A pause, then a giggle. "No, Daddy's trying really hard, but the walls keep falling. I think the hammer is too big." Brent smiled faintly as Eli continued. "I miss you, but I'm okay. Daddy's good now." We talk every day. He tilted the phone toward Brent. She wants to talk to you. Brent took it, hand steady. Hi. Maya's voice was soft. Sounds like you're building more than birdhouses these days. I'm trying, he said. Still a lot of crooked nails. A pause. I wanted to say thank you, Brent added. Not just for taking his call, for giving him something to hold on to. Even now. I didn't stop caring, Maya said. I just had to care from a distance. Brent nodded slowly, though she couldn't see it. I get that now. Another pause. Listen, Maya said finally. My cousin is opening a community center near downtown. After-school programs, youth mentorship, a reading lounge. They need volunteers. I signed up. That's great, Brent said. You'll be amazing. They need someone to help with Saturday story hours. And maybe teach kids how to build stuff. Brent smiled. Birdhouses included? She chuckled softly. That might be where you come in. He blinked. You want me to volunteer? I want Eli to see his father giving back, Maya said. And I want to see if you meant what you said. About being better. Brent nodded, his voice firmer. I'm in. Saturday arrived cloudy and cool. The community center was nestled between a library and a small grocery, painted in bright, welcoming colors. Children streamed in, laughter bouncing off the walls. Eli clutched Brent's hand tightly, eyes wide with curiosity. Maya met them just inside, clipboard in hand, wearing a soft green sweater that matched the calm in her gaze. She smiled at Eli, then looked at Brent not with distance, but with measured openness. Glad you made it, she said. Glad you invited us, Brent replied. The morning flew by. Brent helped cut cardboard for crafts, told a short story about a raccoon who wanted to fly, and spent a surprisingly intense hour fixing a wobbly bookshelf with a 6-year-old critic hovering behind him. But it was during lunch that something shifted. Brent and Maya sat on a bench out back, while the kids ate sandwiches and fruit nearby. You're good with them, Maya said. So are you, Brent replied. Always have been. She looked at him, serious now. It's not just about being good with kids. It's about knowing what they need even when they can't say it. Brent nodded slowly. That's what I've been learning. Eli taught me more in the last month than I learned in years. Maya was quiet for a beat. I think part of me was scared, not just of what happened, but of what it revealed. How fragile trust is, how easily it's cracked. I broke it, Brent admitted. No excuse for that. No, she agreed. But you've been showing up. That counts. Brent turned to her. Can we start over? Not just for Eli, for us, as people. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Starting over doesn't mean forgetting, but it can mean moving forward. He offered a small smile. I'll take that. They sat together in the soft afternoon light, not speaking, just breathing the same air. Around them, the chatter of children and the scent of peanut butter sandwiches filled the space between regrets and second chances. And in that quiet, Brent realized something profound. Healing wasn't about erasing what had been broken. It was about choosing to pick up each piece and keep building, even if it meant the birdhouse would never be perfect. It would still be theirs. Together. A week after their first Saturday at the community center, Brent found himself waking up earlier than usual, not from obligation, but anticipation. The world outside was still dim, the California sky painted with the soft indigo of pre-dawn, but his thoughts were already humming. He glanced toward the hallway where Eli's door was cracked open. The little boy was sprawled diagonally across his bed, tangled in his comforter, snoring lightly with his stuffed tiger pinned beneath one arm. Brent smiled and padded quietly toward the kitchen, pouring himself a cup of coffee before stepping out onto the back patio. He stood there, barefoot, warm mug in hand, watching the sky change. It had become a small ritual in the last few weeks. A quiet check-in with the universe, or maybe just with himself. So much had shifted. So much still hadn't. His phone buzzed on the patio table. A text from Maya. Don't forget, we're painting the reading room at 1-0. Eli said he's in charge of colors. I'm terrified. Brent grinned, typing back quickly. Brace yourself for neon green walls and glitter. He stared at the screen a moment longer than he needed to, heart quietly thudding. These conversations, they were easy, natural, like the early days, before everything went sideways. But there was still something between them that hadn't been touched yet, not fully. A conversation unsaid, a weight unacknowledged. He knew it was coming, and he knew it had to be him who started it. By 10 a.m., the community center was buzzing with energy. Ladders were leaned against empty walls, plastic drop cloths crinkled underfoot, and the air was thick with the smell of fresh paint and youthful enthusiasm. Eli had, indeed, chosen an aggressive neon green for one wall, but Maya had cleverly redirected him toward a softer mint for the others. The glitter, she'd explained with a raised brow, was non-negotiable. Brent rolled paint onto one of the taller walls, glancing over at Maya as she carefully edged the corners near the window. She wore a faded UCLA hoodie and jeans, splattered with colors from past projects. Her hair was tied back in a scarf, and there was a streak of blue across her cheek she hadn't noticed. "Missed a spot," Brent said, nodding toward her face. She dabbed at the wrong cheek. He pointed again, and she chuckled. "You're enjoying this?" "A little," he admitted. They shared a quiet smile. After lunch, pizza on paper plates and juice boxes stolen from the kids' stash, Eli fell asleep on a beanbag in the corner. Maya watched him for a moment before turning to Brent. "Want to go for a walk?" she asked. He nodded, following her out the back door onto the narrow path behind the center. It curved through a small park, the kind with benches and rusted swings, the kind that held echoes of simpler times. They walked in silence at first, leaves crunching beneath their feet. Then Brent spoke. "There's something I haven't said yet," he began. Maya glanced at him but didn't interrupt. "I keep thinking about that night. Not just what happened, but how fast I lost your trust, and how fast I betrayed the care you'd given my son." He took a breath. "I want to say I'm sorry again, but I know it's not enough. Not unless I tell you why it happened. The real why." Maya's expression shifted slightly. "Go on." Brent's eyes stayed on the path. "When I saw Eli hurt that night, my brain didn't even process the details. It just snapped. I thought of my wife, of how helpless I felt when I lost her. I think part of me has been living in a constant state of, what if? What if I miss something? What if I fail him again?" His voice cracked, just barely. "And then there he was, bruised, crying, and you standing there. I didn't see you, not the real you. I saw a threat. I saw danger, because I was terrified. And in that fear, I lost sight of everything I knew about you, everything you'd proven over and over." Maya stopped walking. He stopped too. She looked at him, quiet for a long beat. "You know the hardest part?" she said. "It wasn't that you believed him over me. It was that you didn't even pause. You didn't ask. You didn't look me in the eye and give me the chance to explain." "I know," Brent whispered. "That's what I can't forgive myself for." I'm not asking you to punish yourself," she said gently. "But I need you to understand something. This wasn't just about one moment. It was about what that moment revealed. The way people like me are seen when something goes wrong. Assumed guilty, expected to prove innocence, instead of the other way around." Brent's shoulders slumped. "I see it now," he said, "and I hate that I didn't before." Maya looked at him, really looked at him. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I believe you mean that." I do." She resumed walking, and he followed. "I'm still not sure where we go from here," she said after a while. "But I'm not closing the door either. Trust. It's like paint. You layer it, let it dry, then maybe add another coat." He chuckled softly. "So, we're a work in progress?" "Always," she said. As they returned to the center, Brent glanced up at the sky. The clouds had parted, revealing soft blue. Inside, Eli was awake, holding a paintbrush and pointing at the one wall still blank. "Can we do a rainbow?" he asked. Maya smiled. "Why not?" Brent stepped up beside them, grabbing a brush. "Let's make it bright." Together, they dipped into colors, into mess, into something imperfect but shared. And as the first streaks of red curved onto the wall, Brent knew healing was happening. Not quickly, not neatly, but truthfully, stroke by stroke, word by word. Trust rebuilt like color over white, layered with care. What remained unsaid had been spoken, and what came next they would paint it together. It was a Tuesday evening when Brent finally made the decision. He'd stood at the kitchen island for nearly 20 minutes, phone in hand, thumb hovering over Maya's number. A roast was in the oven, his first solo attempt at something more ambitious than mac and cheese. The table had been set carefully, with Eli's favorite mismatched napkins and a little vase of daisies Brent had picked up from the market that morning. He'd been overthinking the invitation for days. It wasn't about food. It was about something deeper. It was about extending not just a seat at the table, but a seat in their lives again. He exhaled and hit call. "Maya?" "Hey," she answered, a little out of breath. "Sorry, just got off a mentoring session. What's up?" He hesitated only a moment. "Would you and your appetite consider joining Eli and me for dinner tonight? It's not fancy. Might be a culinary disaster, but it's from scratch." There was a pause on the line. Yeah, okay. What time?" 6:30. "Do I need to bring anything?" Brent smiled. "Just yourself." By 6:27, Brent had triple-checked the roast, fluffed the couch cushions, and smoothed his shirt more times than he cared to admit. Eli had drawn a "Welcome Back Maya" sign with crayons and taped it crookedly to the front door. At 6:34, the doorbell rang. Eli sprinted to the door, yanking it open. "Maya." She stepped in, cheeks slightly pink from the crisp evening air, wearing a simple burgundy sweater and jeans. Her curls were loose, her smile shy. "Wow," she said, taking in the scene. "Did I walk into the wrong house?" Brent laughed. "Don't get used to it. This level of coordination only happens under pressure." They settled into the kitchen where the table was already set. Brent carved the roast carefully, while Eli filled glasses with lemonade, spilling a bit but beaming with pride. Dinner was not terrible. The roast was a little dry, and Brent had forgotten to warm the bread, but the laughter came easily. They shared stories from the community center, traded memories of Eli's toddler days, and even joked about the glitter fiasco that had left the reading room sparkling for a week. After the plates had been cleared and Eli had disappeared upstairs to work on a Lego spaceship, Maya and Brent lingered at the table. She sipped her tea and looked around the kitchen. "You know, when I first started here, this house felt like a museum. Cold, quiet, you barely spoke." Brent nodded, rubbing his thumb along the edge of his mug. "I wasn't living, I was functioning. And now? I'm trying," he said. "Not just for Eli, for me." Maya looked at him, thoughtful. "You're doing more than trying." He met her eyes. "I still have a lot to learn, about everything, including you." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Brent hesitated, then said, "I knew your resume. I knew your background. But I never really asked you about your story. Who you are outside these walls." She smiled gently. "Most people don't." "Well, I want to," he said. Maya looked down, brushing a stray curl behind her ear. "All right, what do you want to know?" "Everything." She laughed. "Start smaller." He leaned forward. "What made you want to work with kids?" Her smile softened. "My grandma. She was a teacher for 35 years. Grew up in Alabama during segregation, fought her way into a classroom when black women weren't expected to do anything but clean them. She always said kids were the only part of the world still full of hope." Brent listened, genuinely, his chest tightening at the quiet pride in her voice. She used to say, "If you plant enough good seeds in young hearts, the bad stuff doesn't grow as easy." I wanted to be part of that. He nodded. "She sounds incredible." "She was," Maya said. "Passed 2 years ago. But I still hear her sometimes when I'm helping a kid figure something out. Like she's standing behind me, arms crossed, watching." "I'd like to think she'd be proud of what you've done," Brent said. Maya looked at him. "So would your wife." The statement caught him off guard. "You think so?" "She married a man who built this life with her, who loved his son. You lost your way for a while, but you're finding it again. I think she'd see that." Brent's throat tightened. He hadn't spoken about Rachel much, especially not with anyone who hadn't known her. But hearing her mentioned by Maya, with reverence and no pity, felt like something between a blessing and a balm. "Thank you," he said quietly. They sat in silence for a moment, the warmth between them real and unforced. Then Maya stood. "I should head home." Brent followed her to the door. As she reached for the handle, she turned back. "Tonight was nice." "It was," he said. "Will you come back again?" She met his gaze. "I think I will." As she stepped out into the night, Brent closed the door gently behind her. Upstairs, Eli poked his head around the corner. Did she say she's coming back? Brent smiled. She did. The boy's grin was all the answer he needed. And as Brent turned off the lights and climbed the stairs, he realized this wasn't just a dinner. It was something more. It was the beginning of belonging. Again. This time, with trust and grace as the centerpiece. And maybe, just maybe, something deeper than friendship blooming slowly in the spaces between healing and hope. The weekend arrived with the golden crispness of early fall sunlight soft. Leaves whispering change across the neighborhood. Eli insisted on raking the front yard, though he barely weighed enough to keep the rake on the ground. Brent let him try anyway, watching from the porch as his son gathered a small pile of leaves only to leap into it moments later with unrestrained laughter. Maya was due to arrive any minute. She and Brent had planned an afternoon of cleaning out the garage, a project long overdue and now, oddly, something he looked forward to. She brought energy to even the most mundane chores, and more importantly, she brought peace. Brent felt it in the stillness that settled in him whenever she was near. When her car pulled into the driveway, Eli scrambled to his feet, waving frantically. She stepped out, smiling, a canvas tote slung over her shoulder. "Did you jump into all those leaves by yourself?" she asked Eli, eyeing the debris in his hair. "I made the pile," he declared proudly, "and Daddy said I did a good job, even though most of it is back on the grass." Maya laughed, brushing a leaf from his sleeve. "That's the spirit." Inside the garage, the air was musty with forgotten years. Cardboard boxes teetered in stacks, old sports gear lay half deflated in corners, and holiday decorations peeked from half-open bins. Brent pulled open the door and gestured like a game show host. "Behold, the room where good intentions go to die." Maya chuckled. "Let's bring them back to life." They began sorting, moving through memories and dust in equal measure. Brent found an old photo album, his wedding, Eli as a baby, Rachel in a hospital gown holding him for the first time. Maya paused. "She was beautiful." "She was," Brent said, his voice soft. "She'd have liked you." Maya smiled gently, but said nothing. Later, while sorting a box marked art supplies, Maya uncovered a wrapped canvas. "What's this?" Brent frowned. "I'm not sure." She peeled back the protective paper to reveal a portrait charcoal and acrylic on canvas. It was of Eli, maybe 4 years old, held in the arms of his mother. Rachel's expression was serene, her eyes gentle and kind. Maya held it up, awestruck. "This is stunning." Brent exhaled slowly. Rachel painted. "She never showed this one to me. I must have packed it away after everything." There was a pause. "She saw something," Maya said quietly. "Something she wanted to preserve." Brent stared at the painting, his throat tight. "I've been so focused on what I lost. I forgot how much she left behind." Maya reached for a rag and began carefully dusting the frame. "This belongs somewhere visible." Brent nodded, swallowing emotion. "You're right. They found a spot in the living room, above the fireplace." Brent hung the painting slowly, hands steady. Eli wandered in just as they stepped back to admire it. "Is that Mommy?" he asked. Brent knelt beside him. "It is. She painted this of you and her. Isn't it beautiful?" Eli nodded solemnly. "She looks happy." "She was," Brent whispered, "when she was with you." Maya stood nearby, her expression unreadable. She understood this moment was sacred, not hers to own, but one she was honored to witness. Afterward, they sat on the back patio, the sun beginning to dip behind the trees. Eli napped in the hammock, the painting's emotional echo still lingering in the house. Brent turned to Maya. "I've been thinking." "Dangerous," she teased. "I'm serious," he said with a small smile. "You've become such a part of our lives again, and I don't want to take that for granted. But I also know there are lines, boundaries, and I want to respect them." Maya looked at him, thoughtful. "Brent, I never came back expecting anything. Not promises, not positions. I came back for Eli. And maybe for myself, too." He nodded slowly. "But if I said I'd like more? That I'd like to see where this could go, not because I'm trying to fill a space, but because you're you?" Maya's eyes didn't leave his. "I'd say I'm scared." "I am too." She reached across the small patio table, brushing her fingers briefly against his. "But scared doesn't mean stop. Sometimes it just means go slowly." Uh, Brent turned his palm up, letting her fingers rest there. Slow sounds good. They sat like that, hands touching lightly, neither rushing the silence. It was enough to be heard, enough to be seen. As dusk fell and the world turned softer, Brent felt something settle inside him, not closure, but continuation. Rachel would always be with them, in paintings and memories and the curve of Eli's smile. But Maya was here now, in breath and heartbeat and presence. And maybe, just maybe, there was room for all of it, grief and growth, past and future woven into the same thread of a story still being written. Together, it started with a phone call, an unexpected one on a quiet Thursday afternoon. Brent was in his home office, sorting through some old investment files, when his cell phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar, but local. He answered without thinking. "Brent Carter?" "Yes, speaking. This is Angela Romero from Glendale Elementary. I'm Eli's teacher." Brent sat up straighter, heart nudging his ribs. "Is everything all right?" A pause, then a gentle sigh. "Eli's fine. He's not in trouble, but something happened during lunch today. He got into a disagreement with another student. There were some words exchanged. I think it's something you should hear directly from him." Brent's gut tightened. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. When he arrived at the school, Maya was already in the front office, looking surprised to see him. "I got a call too," she said. "I was nearby at the library." They walked the hallway side by side, silent, their footsteps muffled against the linoleum. Brent could feel tension rising with each step. Whatever had happened, it wasn't nothing. They entered a small counseling room. Eli sat in a plastic chair at the far end, his backpack at his feet, face pale and closed off. Angela stood nearby, holding a folder. "Thanks for coming," she said, giving Maya and Brent each a nod. Eli got into a heated argument with another student during lunch. It started over something small, a pencil, but escalated quickly. Brent frowned. "Escalated how?" Angela hesitated. The other student, Jason, made a comment. Something about Maya. He called her the Maid lady. Suggested Eli was lucky not to be raised by someone like her. Brent's jaw clenched. Maya stayed very still. "And Eli," Angela continued, "pushed Jason. Not hard, but it got physical. Enough to draw attention." Brent knelt in front of Eli. "Is that true, buddy?" Eli nodded, eyes glistening. "He said she didn't belong with us, that she was just a maid and I was dumb for loving her like family." Brent closed his eyes for a moment. Anger pulsed under his skin, not at Eli, but at the ugliness that had made its way into his child's world. "You're not in trouble," Brent said softly, "but we'll talk about this at home, okay?" Eli nodded again. Angela handed over a notice. "He's not suspended. Just a note for the record. But I wanted you both to be aware. These things, they matter." Outside, as they walked to the car, Maya was quiet, too quiet. Brent strapped Eli into the back seat and turned to her. "You okay?" She shrugged. "I'm used to it." He stepped closer. "You shouldn't have to be." She gave a thin smile. "It's not about me. It's about him. That's what scares me. The fact that Eli, sweet, gentle Eli, is already having to choose sides." Brent exhaled. He didn't choose sides. He defended what matters to him. "But should he have to?" Maya's voice cracked. "Should a child have to defend who he loves just because the world sees color and class before character?" Brent didn't have an answer. Later, back at home, Eli curled up on the couch, exhausted. Brent sat next to him, gently stroking his hair. "You did the right thing, standing up for Maya," he said. "I didn't want to hurt him," Eli whispered. "But I got so mad. I love her, Daddy, like family." "I know," Brent said. "And so does she." Eli looked up. "Is she mad at me?" Brent smiled softly. "Not even a little. She's proud of you." That night, Brent called Maya. She didn't answer, but texted later. "I just needed time to think. I'm okay. Tomorrow?" The next morning, she came by early. Brent had made coffee and muffins, unsure what mood she'd be in. She accepted the coffee, but didn't sit right away. "I keep thinking about what Jason said," she began. "And not because I haven't heard it before, but because of how easily Eli was hurt by it. That kind of cruelty, it doesn't just bruise, it teaches. and I don't want him learning the wrong lessons. Brent nodded. So what do? We talk to him. We show him. We fill his world with enough truth, enough love, that lies like that don't stick. She finally sat, shoulders dropping slightly. I keep wondering, she said, if being in your life is going to make things harder for him. Brent looked her dead in the eyes. Maya, being in his life makes him stronger. Her lips parted, but no words came. He reached for her hand. We're not just trying to build back what we had. We're building something new. And yeah, it's going to get messy sometimes. But I'm not walking away from this. From you. From Eli's right to love whoever he wants without shame. She looked down at their joined hands, then up at him. You're different than when we met. I'm finally becoming who I should have been all along. She smiled just slightly. Then let's raise him to be better than both of us. That weekend, Maya and Brent brought Eli to the Griffith Park Observatory, a place Rachel had once loved. Brent hadn't returned since her death, but now it felt right. They wandered through the exhibits, explored the planetarium, and watched the sun dip behind the city from the balcony. As twilight fell, Brent looked at Maya standing beside Eli, pointing at Venus through a telescope. He stepped a little closer. We're doing okay, aren't we? He asked. Maya turned to him, eyes soft. Yeah, she said. We are. And in that moment, with stars beginning to bloom above the city, Brent knew that love, real love, wasn't just about what was said. It was about what endured, through pain, through change, through every echo of doubt. And it was in those quiet, unwavering bonds drawn at the edges of anger, in the heart of resilience that a family, unexpected and true, was taking root. The envelope appeared on a Tuesday, tucked in the mailbox between a coupon booklet and a real estate flyer. Brent didn't notice it at first. It wasn't until after dinner, when he was cleaning the counter and saw the bundle of unopened mail, that he picked it up. His name was written in a familiar script, delicate, deliberate. Rachel. He froze, the room still around him. The return address wasn't hers, it was from her sister, Elise, who lived up north. But the writing was unmistakable. Brent slowly opened the envelope, careful not to tear it. Inside was a folded letter. On top, a sticky note in Elise's handwriting. Found this going through her things. I think she meant it for you, but never got the chance to give it. I hope you're ready to read it. Brent sank into a kitchen chair and unfolded the letter. The paper was cream-colored, faintly scented with lavender. Her favorite. The words blurred at first, but he blinked and focused. My Brent, if you're reading this, something has happened that kept me from saying these things out loud. I don't want that. But life, it's uncertain. So, I'm writing it down, just in case. You've always been strong, even when you didn't think so. You carry the weight of the world and never complain. But strength isn't just about holding on. Sometimes, it's about letting go. About choosing to love again when grief wants to keep you alone. I know you. You'll try to do it all by yourself. You'll build walls and call it protection. But don't let our son grow up behind those same walls. Let him see you vulnerable. Let him see you healed. And one day, if someone comes into your life who sees the light still in you, don't push her away. Let her in. Let her love you. Let her love our son. You deserve joy again. And he deserves a father who remembers how to laugh. I give you both my blessing, not for a replacement, but for continuation. For something new, born out of all that we were. Love always. Rachel. The letter shook in Brent's hands. A deep ache welled in his chest, followed by something unexpected. Relief. Permission. Closure. It wasn't just a goodbye, it was a gift. A release. He heard a soft knock. Maya stood in the doorway, jacket in hand, hesitant. I was nearby. Thought I'd return Eli's sketchbook. He left it in my car after the observatory. Brent stood slowly, eyes red but peaceful. Come in? She did, her gaze flickering to the letter in his hand. You okay? She asked. He nodded. It's from Rachel. A letter she never got to give me. Maya stepped closer. Do you want to talk about it? He met her eyes. Yeah, I do. They sat on the couch. Brent read the letter aloud. His voice cracked in places, but Maya stayed silent, her presence steady. When he finished, they sat in stillness, the weight of it settling like gentle snow. She knew, Brent said finally. Even back then, she knew I'd need permission to move on. Maya reached for his hand. Sometimes, the people who love us most see what we're afraid to admit. I kept thinking I was dishonoring her memory by letting anyone in, he said. But maybe not loving again. That's the real dishonor. Maya didn't speak. She didn't have to. After a while, Brent stood and walked to the mantel. He took down the small framed photo of Rachel and placed the letter behind it. Then he turned to Maya. I want you to know something, he said. You're not stepping into her shadow. You're walking beside it with your own light. Maya's eyes shimmered. And you're not the same man you were then. You're more now, because of what you lost, because of what you're choosing. That night, she stayed for dinner, not out of obligation, not out of politeness, but because something had shifted, something sacred had been named and released. Eli joined them at the table, chatting about school, proudly showing off his latest Lego construction. The three of them laughed easily, the atmosphere lighter, warmer, as if the house had exhaled. After Eli went to bed, Maya lingered. They stood near the door, the night cool behind the screen. Brent looked at her. You've become more than I expected, more than I knew I needed. Maya stepped closer. I'm not perfect. Neither am I, he said. But together, we're getting it right. She smiled, then leaned in and kissed his cheek. See you tomorrow. As she walked away, Brent didn't watch the door close. He looked instead at the photo of Rachel. He whispered, Thank you. Outside, the wind stirred the trees. And inside, love remained not replacing, not erasing but growing, branching toward something new. The past had spoken. The present had listened. And the future, finally, felt wide open. Saturday began with the promise of calm sunlight creeping gently through the blinds, the smell of cinnamon rolls warming in the oven, and Eli humming as he colored at the kitchen table. Brent leaned against the doorway, coffee in hand, content. Maya was due to arrive in an hour. They were planning to take Eli to a neighborhood block party, something Brent hadn't attended in years. Too many strangers, too many conversations, but now, with Maya, he saw it differently. Community as something that could heal, not just intrude. As Brent sipped his coffee, his phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it. A message from an unknown number. You think you can replace Rachel so easily? People don't forget who you really are, Carter. Brent stared at the screen. The words were like cold water. The air seemed to shift. Another message followed. Parading a maid like she's your new wife? Classy. Bet your son's confused as hell. His fingers clenched around the phone. The number was blocked. No name, just venom. Daddy? Eli's voice pulled him back. Are you okay? Brent turned, forcing calm into his face. Yeah, bud. Just a weird message. Nothing important. But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like a ghost reaching through the walls he thought he'd built strong enough. Maya arrived not long after, cheerful and bright in a soft denim jacket and hoop earrings. She carried a tray of cookies she and her neighbor had baked. Brent didn't mention the messages right away. He didn't want to dampen the morning. At the block party, Eli darted between booths, his laughter echoing down the street. Brent and Maya walked side by side, waving at neighbors, stopping to chat with familiar faces. For the first time in a long while, Brent felt like he belonged. But it didn't last. Near the lemonade stand, a woman in her 60s, elegantly dressed, stepped into their path. Brent recognized her immediately. Linda Holloway, one of Rachel's former colleagues from her charity board. Brent, she said coolly, didn't expect to see you here. Linda, Brent said, keeping his voice neutral. It's been a while. Her eyes flicked to Maya. And this must be the help? Maya stiffened. Brent stepped forward immediately, voice steady but firm. This is Maya Williams. She's part of our family. Linda's brows arched. Is that what we're calling it now? Brent didn't flinch. You're not going to talk to her that way. Not to her, not to me, not ever. People nearby began to take notice. Maya placed a calming hand on his arm. Brent, she whispered. Let's just go. But Brent wasn't done. For the record, he said, loud enough for those around to hear, Maya's more grace and strength than half the people I've known, including you. Linda's face flushed. She turned on her heel and walked away. Brent turned to Maya. breath tight. I'm sorry, I should've. You did fine, she said softly. You defended what matters. They left the party early. Back at home, the mood was quieter. Eli was unaware, still basking in the joy of cotton candy and sidewalk chalk. But Brent and Maya sat on the back steps in silence for a while, the air heavier now. I got a message this morning, Brent finally said. Anonymous, hateful, about us. Maya nodded slowly. It was bound to come. That doesn't make it okay. No, she said, but it makes it real. This us, it's going to push buttons, for people stuck in their own fear. He looked at her, eyes filled with something raw. I didn't think we'd have to fight so hard just to be allowed to exist. We're not fighting to exist, she said. We're fighting to be seen clearly, without filter, without bias. Brent exhaled. Are you sure this is still what you want? The whispers, the looks, the weight? Maya turned to face him fully. Brent, I've carried the weight of judgment my whole life. The only thing that's changed is now I'm not carrying it alone. His throat tightened. I just don't want you hurt. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I'm already healing. Inside, Eli's laughter floated through the window. We're going to have to teach him, Maya said. Not just how to be kind, but how to be strong when kindness isn't returned. Brent nodded, and we'll teach him together. That night, as Brent tucked Eli into bed, the boy looked up at him and asked, why was that lady mean to Maya? Brent hesitated, choosing his words with care. Sometimes, people say mean things because they're afraid of things they don't understand. Or because they think their way is the only right way. Eli blinked, confused. But Maya's nice. She gives good hugs. She does, Brent smiled. And sometimes, being good doesn't protect you from bad words, but it does help you rise above them. Eli nodded slowly. Can I make her a card tomorrow? Like, a superhero card? That's a great idea, Brent said, kissing his forehead. Later, alone in the quiet of the living room, Brent reread Rachel's letter. This time, he understood its deepest message: to love bravely, even when the world didn't approve, to let go of fear, and step into truth. And with Maya beside him, Brent was beginning to learn that courage wasn't always loud. Sometimes, it looked like showing up. Like standing your ground. Like holding someone's hand on a porch step and saying, I'm still here, no matter what they say. The storm of the past hadn't passed, but they were facing it together. And that, more than anything, was the beginning of something unshakable. The following week passed in a strange rhythm, quiet but charged, like the air before a storm. Maya returned to her usual routine at the community center, organizing a fall reading program and mentoring 2 new volunteers. Brent buried himself in work, taking on more consulting calls and managing Eli's school fundraiser. They both smiled when they saw each other, still shared dinners, exchanged stories, but something between them hung suspended, unspoken. One evening, after Brent had dropped Eli off at a sleepover and returned to a quiet, echoing house, he found Maya sitting on the back porch. She hadn't texted, hadn't knocked. She was just there, arms crossed against the evening chill, gazing at the sky with a tired softness in her eyes. He joined her wordlessly, sitting beside her on the creaky bench. I keep replaying that moment with Linda in my head, Maya said quietly. The way she looked at me, like I didn't deserve to be standing next to you, like I didn't belong in that moment. Brent exhaled. I replay it too. I keep thinking of all the other things I should have said. It's not your job to fix their ignorance, she said, glancing sideways at him. But sometimes, it's exhausting carrying the weight of proving your worth. You shouldn't have to, Brent said. I know, but I do. Because I chose to love people who don't look like me. Because I walk into rooms where I'm seen as less before I even open my mouth. He sat in silence, heart aching. I'm not fragile, she added. Don't mistake this for weakness. I've survived worse, but it takes something from you every time. And it's hard knowing that no matter how much I give, to some people, I'll always be the help. Brent reached for her hand. To me, you're the woman who brought joy back into my son's life, who reminded me how to breathe again, who stood beside me in the hardest moments, and I'll never let anyone reduce that to anything less. She looked down at their entwined fingers, a shadow of a smile on her lips. Do you think we're strong enough for what's coming? She asked. Brent didn't answer immediately. Instead, He looked toward the backyard where Eli had once buried his toy cars in the dirt, declaring them lost treasure. The wind stirred the oak tree. Leaves skittered across the porch. "I think love doesn't ask for ease," he said. "It asks for commitment, for presence, for staying, even when it's hard." Maya nodded slowly. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "My father would have hated this." Brent turned to her. "He left when I was 10, she continued. Said he couldn't handle raising a daughter in a world that didn't respect him. But the truth is, he couldn't handle love that required sacrifice. He always said love was supposed to make life easier, not more complicated." Brent's voice was gentle. Then he didn't understand real love. Maya looked at him, her eyes glassy. "Sometimes I wonder if I picked strong men to prove I was stronger than what he left behind. But it's not about proving anything. It's about choosing." "And I choose you," Brent said, voice steady. Maya leaned against him, letting her head rest on his shoulder. "Even when people whisper? Even when they stare? When they make you doubt?" "Especially then," he replied. They stayed like that for a long while, letting the night wrap around them. No more pretending, no more hiding behind good intentions and polite avoidance. They were in it now fully, unapologetically. The next day, Maya returned to the community center to find a surprise waiting for her. A local journalist, Lisa Huerta, had emailed requesting an interview. She was doing a feature on mentorship and community leadership, and had heard about Maya through a parent whose child had been positively impacted by her programs. Maya hesitated. Public attention meant exposure, both good and bad. That night, she brought it up to Brent. "You think I should do it?" she asked, handing him the printed email. He read it carefully. "You've been changing lives, Maya. People should know that. But you know how this goes," she said. "If I speak publicly, the trolls will follow. They'll dig. They'll twist. You can handle them," Brent said, "and I'll be right beside you when you do." She studied him, reading not just his words but the resolve behind them. "Then I'll do it," she said. "But I'm doing it my way, on my terms." Brent smiled. "That's the only way I want you to." A week later, the article was published. The quiet force behind East Glendale's youth revival. It was thoughtful, beautifully written, and deeply personal. Maya spoke about her grandmother, about education, about lifting young people who'd been forgotten. She didn't mention Brent or Eli, not out of shame, but because the story wasn't about that. It was about purpose. Still, the responses came quickly. Most were positive praise, admiration, stories from strangers who felt seen in her words. But, as expected, the other kind followed. Brent sat beside her one evening scrolling through comments, his jaw tight. "This one calls you a charity case turned babysitter," he muttered. Maya didn't even flinch. "That's mild. Wait until they start comparing me to a gold digger." He turned to her. "I hate that you expect this. I hate that I have to," she said. "But here's what matters. There are 2 new volunteers at the center this week. Both said they came because of the article. That's 2 more hearts open. That's 2 more seeds planted." He took her hand and kissed it. "You amaze me." She looked into his eyes. "Don't forget, Brent, the people throwing stones are loud, but they're not the foundation. We are." That night, for the first time, Brent framed the article and hung it on the wall beside the fireplace, just below Rachel's painting. 2 women, 2 legacies, both rooted in love, both shaping the future. And as Brent stood back, arms around Maya, he knew this wasn't just healing. It was transformation. And it was only the beginning. It was a gray Wednesday afternoon when the unexpected knock came. Brent was in the kitchen, preparing a pot of chili for dinner, humming softly as the aroma of onions and spices filled the air. Eli was doing homework in the living room, legs swinging off the couch. While Maya hadn't arrived yet, she was giving a talk at the community center. The knock came again. Steady, measured. Brent wiped his hands and opened the door. On the porch stood a tall man, sharply dressed in a navy coat and polished shoes. His posture was firm, eyes shadowed beneath a neatly trimmed brow. He looked familiar, though Brent couldn't place him right away. "Mr. Carter?" the man asked, voice deep and composed. "Yes? My name is Harrison Bishop. I'm Maya's father." Brent's breath caught. He stared, stunned, and instinctively stepped outside, closing the door softly behind him. "I didn't know," Brent started. unsure what to say. She doesn't know I'm here, Harrison said, looking out toward the street. We haven't spoken in years. But I read the article, saw her picture. And I thought, maybe it's time. Brent studied the man. He was older than he expected, perhaps in his late 60s, but carried himself with an intensity that hadn't dulled with age. The resemblance was faint, mostly in the set of the jaw, the quiet defiance in his eyes. Why now? Brent asked. Harrison's lips pressed together. Because I walked away once, and I've regretted it every day since. I thought I was protecting her, from the world, from me, but I see now I was just protecting myself from what I didn't understand. Brent folded his arms, feeling a mix of protectiveness and curiosity. She's strong. She doesn't need saving. I know that, Harrison said. She always was. But a daughter deserves her father to show up, even if it's late. Brent hesitated. She's speaking at the Glendale Women's Shelter tonight. You could go, quietly, listen. Harrison nodded. That's all I want. That evening, Maya stood at the podium in a modest room filled with women from all walks of life, young mothers, survivors, retired teachers, students. She wore a burgundy blouse and gold earrings that caught the light every time she turned her head. Brent sat in the back, Eli beside him, holding a coloring book. And in the farthest corner, dressed in the same navy coat, sat Harrison Bishop, rigid, watchful, silent. Maya spoke of legacy, of building bridges where others had burned them. She spoke of her grandmother, who cleaned houses but taught her to read by flashlight, of mentors who believed in her, and of the quiet fire she had to stoke within herself to keep going. I was told more than once that my place was in the background, she said, but I've learned that the background is where roots grow deepest. It's where strength forms. And sometimes, the most powerful people are the ones who choose to lift others instead of lifting themselves. Brent glanced at Harrison during the applause. The man was staring at her, his jaw tight, but his eyes were wet. After the talk, Maya made her way through the crowd, accepting hugs and handshakes. Brent intercepted her gently before she reached the exit. There's someone here, he said softly. Her brows furrowed. Who? Brent turned slightly, and her eyes followed his line of sight straight to the far corner. She froze. Why? Her voice caught in her throat. He showed up on his own, Brent said. Wanted to listen. Maya took a slow breath, her shoulders rising and falling like a wave trying to decide whether to break. Do you want me to? Brent asked. No, she said quickly, then more quietly. Number, I'll talk to him. She walked across the room, heels clicking softly on the floor. Harrison stood as she approached, but said nothing. You read the article, she said, and that made you remember you have a daughter? I never forgot, Harrison replied, voice hoarse. I just didn't know how to come back. You could have tried, Maya said. Even once. I thought I was doing you a favor, staying away. She shook her head, bitter laughter escaping her lips. That's the lie you told yourself so it wouldn't hurt as much. Harrison flinched but didn't look away. I read every word of that article, and I saw strength I never had. You didn't become strong in spite of me. You became strong because I left. Maya's eyes glistened. You don't get to rewrite that. I'm not trying to, he said. I'm asking if there's room to begin again, even just a conversation now and then. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then, her voice steadied. I have a son in that room over there. His name is Eli. He's not mine by blood, but I love him with everything I have. If you want to talk to me, you'll have to earn your place. Not through me, but through how you show up in his world. Harrison blinked. You're raising someone else's child? I'm helping raise him, she corrected. And in doing so, I'm healing the little girl who waited years for her father to show up. Tears filled Harrison's eyes now. May I meet him someday? We'll see, she said quietly. One step at a time. She turned and walked away, leaving Harrison standing alone. Brent met her halfway and gently placed a hand on her back. You okay? He asked. I don't know, she replied, but I said what I needed to say. That night, Brent tucked Eli into bed, then returned to the porch where Maya sat staring into the darkness. Do you regret seeing him? Brent asked. No, Maya said. I regret needing it. Brent sat beside her, took her hand. You were incredible tonight. I wasn't trying to be, she said. I just didn't want to carry silence anymore. They sat in the quiet, the kind that felt like healing. Brent pressed a kiss to her temple. You don't have to carry anything alone, he whispered. And in that moment, with the past confronted and the present claimed, Maya leaned into him, no longer running from echoes, but walking forward with the strength of truth, and a future waiting just ahead. Autumn deepened. The trees turned from gold to fire, and the air grew sharper, carrying the scent of earth and distant fireplaces. Brent had begun walking Eli to school each morning, a new ritual that gave them time to talk, laugh, and sometimes just walk in comfortable silence. Maya often joined them on Fridays, holding Eli's hand as he skipped between them, unaware of how tightly his joy stitched their lives together. But on a brisk Thursday morning, something shifted. Brent received a call from one of his longtime business partners, Gordon Laird. The man's tone was casual at first, chit-chat about golf and quarterly numbers, but then his voice took on a different edge. Listen, Brent, Gordon said. Off the record, I've been hearing chatter from some of the board members. They're concerned. Brent frowned. Concerned about what? Gordon hesitated. About your visibility lately, the article, the photographs, the woman. You mean Maya? Brent said flatly. I'm not saying it's right. Gordon rushed. But the reality is, some of the more conservative clients are questioning your judgment. You're in the spotlight now, and well, your personal choices are starting to ripple. Brent's grip tightened around the phone. So I'm supposed to hide the woman I care about to protect someone else's comfort? I'm saying, be mindful. This isn't just your reputation anymore. You've got investments, partners, legacies tied to your name. Brent hung up without another word. He spent the rest of the day in a quiet fury, trying to focus, trying not to slam the cabinet doors when he made lunch. When Maya arrived in the evening, she sensed something was wrong before he said a word. You've got that jawline thing going, she said softly, setting her bag down. Like you're chewing through a brick wall. He handed her a glass of wine and sat beside her on the couch. I got a call from Gordon, one of the guys I've done business with for years, basically told me people are talking about us. Maya's face didn't change. Not shock, not anger, just a sad sort of knowing. They're not talking about us, she said quietly. They're talking about me. Brent looked at her. I won't apologize for loving you. I know, she said, but they think you should, and that's the part that burns. He stared at the floor. Do you think I'm being naive, thinking I could just move on, build something real with you, and the world would adjust? Maya took his hand. I think you're being brave, but bravery doesn't make the path easy. It just means we walk it anyway. He lifted her hand to his lips. I don't want to lose what I've built, Maya, but I won't lose you to keep it. She looked at him for a long moment. Then maybe it's time we show them exactly who we are, not to defend it, but to own it. The opportunity came sooner than expected. The Glendale Business Foundation was hosting its annual gala, a black tie event Brent had attended every year since his first real estate project broke ground. This time, he RSVP'd for two. When Maya stepped into the ballroom, wearing a midnight blue gown and her grandmother's pearls, the room stilled. Conversations softened, heads turned. Brent stood beside her, immaculately dressed in a tailored tuxedo, hands steady on the small of her back. He whispered, You're the storm and the stillness all at once. She smiled. Let's give them something to really whisper about. Throughout the evening, Maya held her head high, exchanged pleasantries with politicians and philanthropists, answered backhanded compliments with grace, sharp as glass. Oh, and what do you do, dear? One woman asked, eyes flicking between Maya's skin and the wine in her glass. I build bridges, Maya said with a smile, between children and their futures, between communities and the people who forget them. The woman blinked, caught off guard. Brent watched her all night, pride swelling in his chest. Maya was magnetic, unshakable. She didn't shrink herself to fit anyone's expectations. She expanded the room just by being in it. Later, on the terrace, under strings of golden lights, Maya and Brent shared a dance. The music was slow, nostalgic, Sinatra. Her head rested on his shoulder. Do you think we changed any minds tonight? She asked softly. Maybe not, he said. But we changed the story they tell about us. She pulled back slightly, eyes shining. And maybe, one little girl saw me tonight and thought, that could be me someday. Brent kissed her forehead. That's the only legacy worth chasing. As the gala wound down, and they walked to the car. Brent's phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Gordon. Saw you two tonight. She's impressive. Maybe I needed to see it for myself. Brent showed her. Maya read it and shrugged. One down, she said. A few million more to go. But she smiled. And so did Hay. Because when the wind changes, it doesn't come all at once. It starts in whispers, in quiet steps, in nights like this when the past is challenged, and the future leans forward, waiting to be claimed. Together, they walked into the dark, their shadows long, their hearts light. And somewhere in that night, the world shifted just a little, just enough. The morning after the gala, Brent sat at the kitchen island, coffee in hand, watching the steam curl like smoke signals. Maya stood at the stove in her robe, flipping pancakes with one hand and texting a volunteer with the other. Eli clattered his spoon rhythmically against his bowl of cereal, humming a tune from a cartoon he'd seen the night before. It was domestic. It was warm. It was everything Brent had once thought he'd never have again. Until the phone rang. He didn't recognize the number. Something about it made his stomach tense. He answered with a cautious, "Hello? Mr. Carter?" The voice was clipped, professional. "This is Detective Carla Monroe, Glendale PD. I need to ask you a few questions regarding a claim filed against you." Brent froze. "What kind of claim?" "It concerns a formal complaint about the well-being of your son, Eli Carter. We've received an anonymous tip suggesting possible neglect or inappropriate behavior occurring at your residence." Maya turned at the sound of his sharp intake of breath. "Is this a joke?" Brent asked, voice low. "I assure you, it's standard procedure," Monroe said. "We're obligated to follow up on any reported concern. I'd like to schedule a home visit to speak with both you and your son." Brent's heart pounded. "He's fine. He's more than fine. Who filed this?" "Anonymous, sir. That's confidential. We just need to verify the child's safety." When the call ended, Brent sat motionless. Maya touched his shoulder gently. "What is it?" "Child Protective Services," he whispered. "Someone filed a complaint. About Eli. About us." Maya's face went pale. "That's not possible. Who would do that?" He looked at her, eyes narrowing. "Linda? Or someone from the board? Or someone with an axe to grind?" Maya said quietly. "Someone who thinks our family doesn't look right." The rest of the day passed in a haze of tension. Brent called his lawyer. Maya contacted the director of the community center. Eli, blissfully unaware, spent the afternoon painting rocket ships in the backyard. When the visit came, Detective Monroe arrived precisely at 4. She was calm, professional, her badge clipped neatly to her belt. She spoke kindly to Eli, asked him to show her his favorite toys, gently inquired about his school, his bedtime, the foods he liked best. Maya observed everything with a practiced calm, answering when asked, standing back when not. When Monroe turned to Brent and said, "I see no signs of concern. Eli is clearly loved and well cared for." The relief was so sudden and fierce it made his knees weak. But the question remained, who would do this? That night, after Eli had gone to bed, Brent poured 2 glasses of scotch and handed one to Maya. They sat in the living room, lights dimmed. "This is retaliation," Brent said. "For the article, for the gala." Maya sipped slowly. "For being visible, for refusing to apologize. I want to fight back," he said. "I want to find out who did it and expose them." She looked at him over the rim of her glass. "And then what? Humiliate them? Give them more reason to twist the narrative? I want to protect you. And Eli." "I know," she said gently. "But we do that best by staying calm, by holding our heads high. Let them come at us in the dark, we'll stand in the light." Brent leaned back, exhaling. "You're stronger than me sometimes. I've had more practice," she said with a sad smile. There was a knock at the door. Brent stood cautiously. When he opened it, a small envelope lay on the doorstep. No one in sight. He picked it up, brought it inside, and opened it. Inside was a printed photo Maya and Eli at the park, laughing, the sun casting gold over them, and scrawled across the bottom, in red ink, "He's not yours, she's not welcome." Brent's blood ran cold. Maya stood, peering over his shoulder. Her face went blank. "This is escalating," he said. "This isn't just judgment anymore, it's threat." She stepped back, voice calm but shaking slightly. We have to involve the police. Show them this. And Eli, he can't see it. He can't know. Maya nodded. He won't. But Brent, this isn't just about us now. Someone's watching, and that means we're at a crossroads. Brent met her gaze, heart pounding. What do? We stop hiding. We go public. Again, we tell our story before someone else writes it for us. Brent hesitated. That could put a target on us. We're already the target, she said. So we show them. We don't scare easily. 2 days later, Maya agreed to an interview with a national podcast hosted by a well-known black journalist. It was an hour-long conversation that covered everything. Her upbringing, her work at the community center, her role in Eli's life, and the threats they'd received. Brent listened from the recording booth, jaw tight, heart full. I don't want to be a symbol, Maya said at one point. I want to be a woman who loved deeply and who refused to shrink for anyone. I want my son to grow up knowing that courage doesn't always roar sometimes. It whispers, I will not move. When the episode aired, the response was overwhelming. Support poured in from across the country, mothers, teachers, retired veterans, pastors, people who saw themselves in Maya's voice. And then, a letter arrived, typed, signed, no return address. Your right to speak. We were wrong to judge. The boy is lucky, and so are you. There were no threats this time, just an echo of change. And for the first time in weeks, Brent exhaled and didn't feel the weight of watching shadows. Maya stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the skyline beyond their porch. You feel that? She asked. What? The wind, she said. It's not just shifting anymore, it's lifting. He nodded. Maybe it's carrying us towards something better. And in the silence that followed, there was peace. Not because the world had stopped judging, but because they had stopped letting it define them. A week passed. Then, too, the podcast had stirred something, a collective reckoning. Maya's inbox overflowed with messages. Teachers asking for her curriculum template, community leaders requesting to speak at her center, even a television network expressing interest in adapting her story into a documentary. But not all responses were uplifting. One afternoon, while Maya was speaking at a youth panel in downtown Glendale, Brent received a letter delivered directly to his law office. It was typed, clean, precise, threatening litigation. The sender? Linda Hartman's legal representation. She was suing for defamation, claiming Maya's public appearances had damaged her personal reputation and professional credibility. Brent read the letter 3 times before his vision cleared enough to pick up the phone. Linda's suing you? Maya asked when he told her that evening, her tone more stunned than angry. Technically, she's suing me, Brent replied, claiming that your comments on the podcast painted her in a false and damaging light. I didn't even say her name. She's arguing that people knew who you were referring to. Maya leaned against the counter, rubbing her temple. So she tries to sabotage our family, files false reports, and now she's playing victim? Brent sighed. She's not just trying to win, she's trying to silence you. Maya shook her head slowly. Then we make sure she fails. Brent called a legal firm in LA, known for defending civil rights cases. They agreed to represent Maya pro bono, recognizing the broader implications. Maya wasn't just a woman defending herself, she had become a voice in a conversation far larger than herself. That weekend, Brent and Maya sat down with a reporter from the Los Angeles Tribune. It wasn't just an interview, it was a reclamation. We've had enough of being grateful for breadcrumbs of acceptance, Maya said. This family wasn't built in fear, and it won't live in it. Brent added, our story might not be comfortable for some people, but it's real, and we refuse to let anyone, no matter how powerful, decide it's less valid because it doesn't look like theirs. The article went viral within 24 hours. Suddenly, Maya wasn't just a woman who helped kids after school. She was being hailed as a leader, a symbol of endurance, a disruptor of polite silence. And with that visibility came new alliances. A coalition of mothers, Black, white, Latina, Asian, formed a community task force inspired by Maya's work. They met every Wednesday in a borrowed church basement, discussing ways to challenge systemic bias in education, family courts, and housing. They called themselves the Porchlight Project, a nod to Maya's philosophy. Always leave the light on for the next soul finding their way home. Even Brent, who had always preferred to work quietly behind the scenes, began speaking more openly. At Eli's school fundraiser, He gave a brief but powerful speech. Families come in all shapes and shades, he told a crowd of parents. What defines us is not our blood, but our bond. And our bond has been tested but not broken. Afterward, an older man approached him, a retired firefighter, white, with eyes like frost. I wasn't sure about all this at first, he said, but I watched how your boy looks at her. That kind of trust that's earned. You've got a good one there. Brent nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. But just as things began to settle, the lawsuit gained traction. A court date was set. As the day approached, Maya remained calm on the surface. But Brent noticed the subtle signs: longer hours awake at night, the tightening of her shoulders, the silence that stretched between sips of coffee. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, she finally broke. I hate that I'm scared, she whispered, not of losing, but of being humiliated, of standing in a room full of people who will dissect every word I say, every breath I take, as if I need permission to exist. Brent reached for her hand. You don't need to be fearless, Maya. Just honest. That's what makes you powerful. She looked at him. If I cry on that stand, if my voice shakes, then you'll be showing every woman who's ever been silenced that there's strength in not pretending. She exhaled, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. I just want Eli to grow up in a world where love isn't punished. He will, Brent said, because you're helping build it. The morning of the hearing, Maya dressed in navy blue, sharp, elegant, dignified. Brent held her hand as they entered the courthouse, past cameras and whispers, past those who still doubted her. Inside, Linda sat flanked by two attorneys, her face impassive. When Maya took the stand, the room stilled. The questions were sharp, deliberate, intended to rattle. Do you consider yourself a public figure, Miss Williams? Number, I consider myself a woman who spoke the truth. And you believe your comments did not imply anything specific? I believe I told my story. And if someone saw themselves in it, perhaps that says more about them than me. There were moments her voice wavered, moments her hands trembled, but never once did she look away. When the verdict came 3 days later, the court ruled in Maya's favor. The judge's closing statement was searing. In a society increasingly shaped by narratives, we must protect the right to share lived experiences. Miss Williams' words, while passionate, remained rooted in truth. This court recognizes the necessity of speech that challenges comfort in the pursuit of justice. Outside, reporters crowded. Brent shielded Maya as best he could, but she stepped forward, calm and clear. We're not asking to be special, she said. We're asking to be seen. And as they walked away, hand in hand, Eli ran to meet them, throwing his arms around Maya's waist, beaming with pride. The storm had not broken them. It had revealed them. The courthouse victory didn't just close a chapter, it opened a new one. For Maya, it marked the end of defending her place and the beginning of defining her future. For Brent, it reawakened a fierce clarity about what mattered most: truth, love, and protecting the life they were building. And for Eli, it simply meant his mother figure walked taller, smiled more, and no longer flinched at the sound of a knock on the door. But even as the dust settled, life moved on. One late afternoon, the three of them sat on the back porch as a gentle rain misted the yard. Eli was painting again, this time on a big sheet of cardboard, his brush dancing between bold strokes of red and blue. It's a rocket, he said proudly. And this, he pointed to a figure inside, is you, Maya. You're flying it. Where am I headed? She asked. To the stars, where all the brave people go. Maya swallowed the lump in her throat. Brent reached for her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. But beneath the sweetness of domestic routine, there lingered an unfinished thread: Harrison. Maya hadn't spoken to her father since their encounter at the shelter, not because she was angry, but because the silence between them still echoed with too many unspoken words. She hadn't decided what place, if any, he had in her life. But one afternoon, while organizing files at the center, a letter arrived in a plain envelope, handwritten in neat cursive. She opened it cautiously. Maya, I watched your interview. You stood with a spine of steel and a heart full of mercy. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope you'll let me say one more thing in person. If you're willing, I'll be at Granger's Diner this Sunday at noon. I'll wait an hour. If you don't come, I'll understand. Dad. Maya stared at the note for a long while. Then she folded it and tucked it in her coat pocket. That night, she told Brent. "Do you want to go?" he asked. "I don't know, but I want to stop wondering if I should." He nodded. "Then go. If it doesn't give you peace, at least it'll give you an answer." Sunday came. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that made colors look brighter. Granger's diner was nearly empty when Maya pushed open the door. The smell of bacon and coffee wafted through the air. Harrison was there, sitting in a corner booth. He looked older, smaller somehow, wearing a coat that had once fit him better. He stood when he saw her. "Maya," he said, like a breath he hadn't been allowed to release in years. She slid into the booth opposite him, saying nothing at first. He waited. The silence settled between them. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "Neither was I." A waitress came, poured them coffee, left them alone again. Harrison took a slow sip. "I've replayed the past like a broken record, trying to figure out when I became the man who disappeared from his daughter's life." Maya folded her hands on the table. "And did you figure it out?" "Not entirely, but I know shame played a big role. And fear. You left Mom to raise me alone. You missed every recital, every fever, every heartbreak." "I know." "Oh. And still, I looked for your face at every school play, every birthday. For a long time, I believed I'd done something to make you stay away." His face crumpled, just slightly. "I can't undo that pain. I can't take credit for the woman you became either. But I can tell you that I've never admired anyone more." She blinked hard. "You don't get to admire from a distance forever." "I'm not asking for forever," he said. "Just a beginning, a small one. If Eli would allow it, I'd like to meet him someday. No pressure, just to see the world you've built." Maya studied him, looking past the lines of regret into the man trying to step into a space he'd once abandoned. "I don't know if I'll ever call you Dad again," she said honestly. "But I'm willing to see who you are now." He nodded, tears glinting in his eyes. "That's more than I deserve." They sat in silence after that, but it was no longer heavy. It was the kind of silence that lets new things grow. Later that week, back home, Maya received another envelope, this time from the mayor's office. She opened it slowly. Inside was a letter inviting her to speak at the Glendale City Forum, a major annual event spotlighting leaders driving change. The theme this year was redefining justice. Maya held the letter up for Brent to see. "They want me to speak." He grinned. "Of course they do." She hesitated. "I'm not a politician or an expert." "You're better," he said. "You're living proof that justice begins at home." The night of the forum arrived. The venue buzzed with anticipation. Maya stepped onto the stage in front of hundreds, maybe thousands, including Harrison, seated beside Brent and Eli in the front row. She began with a story, not about statistics or policy, but about a little girl waiting for a father and a boy learning to trust again, about bridges that take years to build and moments that tear them down. "My name is Maya Williams," she said. "I am not perfect. I am not a symbol. I am a daughter, a mother by choice, a woman who chose not to shrink. And if justice has taught me anything, it's that it often arrives not with applause, but in quiet choices to show up, even when it's hard." The room stood in thunderous applause. Later that night, as the family drove home beneath the glow of city lights, Eli asked from the back seat, "Did you feel nervous, Maya?" "Terrified," she admitted. "But you didn't look scared," he said. "That's because I wasn't alone." Brent reached for her hand across the console. She squeezed it tight. The past had not broken them. The noise had not silenced them. And as they approached the final bend of this long, winding journey, Maya knew one thing for certain. Justice wasn't a destination. It was a way of walking. And she had found her stride. The scent of autumn clung to the morning air as Brent pushed open the front door, letting in a gust of crisp wind and golden leaves. Maya stood in the kitchen, humming softly as she packed Eli's lunch, her movements practiced, calm. There was a rhythm now to their days, a sense of groundedness that hadn't existed a year ago. Eli darted down the hallway, backpack bouncing, hair still messy from sleep. "Did you remember my comic book?" he asked. Maya zipped the front pouch of his bag. "Got it right here, Captain." Brent tousled Eli's hair. "Big day at school?" Eli beamed. "We're doing presentations about our heroes." I picked Maya. Maya froze, a spoon hovering midair. "You did?" Eli nodded proudly. "Everyone else picked superheroes. I said mine makes real people feel safe." Her eyes welled up. She crouched down and hugged him tightly. That means more to me than anything. After the school drop-off, Brent and Maya drove together in silence, the city slipping past in soft blurs. He reached for her hand on the gear shift. "Did you ever think we'd get here?" he asked. She smiled. "Number, but I fought like hell for it." Huh. Their destination that morning was the groundbreaking ceremony of a new community hub in East Glendale, a building funded by a mix of private donors and city grants. With Maya at the center of the vision, it would house after-school programs, legal aid offices, a small health clinic, and a family resource library. Brent had used his influence and connections to fast-track permits and clear zoning hurdles, but the heart of it belonged to Maya. As they stepped out of the car, a crowd had already gathered. News, cameras, families, local leaders. A few familiar faces from Maya's center waved. Harrison stood in the back, hands folded in front of him, a quiet pillar of support. The mayor took the stage first. He spoke about progress, partnerships, community resilience. Then, with reverent ceremony, he introduced Maya. She walked up, calm and composed, a navy peacoat billowing slightly in the wind. "My story isn't unique," she began. "Too many children grow up unseen. Too many families fall through cracks designed by neglect or indifference. But places like this, hubs of dignity, can become anchors." She paused, scanning the crowd. "We're not just breaking ground today. We're breaking silence. We're building a place where a child like Eli will never have to lie about love, where a woman like me will never be asked to apologize for belonging." Thunderous applause followed. Brent watched from the front row, pride shining in his eyes. Maya stepped down from the podium and joined him. Together, they lifted the ceremonial shovel, turned over a patch of earth, and officially began the next chapter, not just for themselves, but for the city. That night, as dusk fell, they gathered on the back porch. Eli had dragged out a blanket and insisted they all lie under the stars. The sky was a velvet expanse of blinking lights. Harrison joined them, a respectful distance away, sipping cider from a mug Maya had handed him without words. Brent looked up and murmured, "It's wild how much can change in a year." Maya smiled softly. "And how much still stays?" Eli yawned. "When I grow up, I want to help people too, like you and Maya." "You already do," Brent said, pulling the boy close. "You remind us what love looks like when it's brave." Harrison cleared his throat. "I missed a lot," he said quietly, "but watching this, watching you all, it's like being given a second life." Maya turned to him, her voice warm but steady. "Then use it." He nodded. "I intend to." They sat like that for a while longer, wrapped in silence and comfort. The kind of silence that no longer hides pain, but holds peace. Later, after Harrison had left and Eli had been tucked into bed, Brent and Maya stood in the hallway, looking at the photos taped to the wall. One was from Eli's school presentation, him pointing to a big, glittery poster with Maya's face in the center, ringed with hearts and the words, "My hero." "I never thought I'd be in someone's hero speech," she whispered. Brent turned to her. "You're in mine." She leaned into him, forehead resting on his chest. "What do you think happens now?" "We live," he said, fully, loudly, honestly. Maya stepped back and smiled. "Then let's do that." Months passed. The community hub opened its doors. Eli graduated to a higher grade, his confidence blooming. Brent turned down a lucrative development offer that would have compromised neighborhood housing. Harrison began mentoring young fathers at the center, and Maya became a voice not just for justice, but for hope. One evening, Maya received a letter, no return address. She opened it with careful fingers. "Miss Williams, I was one of the people who judged you, who thought your love was misplaced. But after hearing your story and watching what you've built, I realize how wrong I was. You changed my mind. Thank you for that. P.S. My daughter just joined your reading circle. She came home saying she wants to be just like you." Maya closed her eyes, holding the letter to her chest. Outside, Eli called out, "Maya, Brent, come see the sunset." They stepped outside together. The sky was a watercolor of fire and gold. Eli danced on the lawn, spinning beneath the clouds. Brent slipped an arm around her. "We did it." "No," Maya said, "we're doing it. Because healing wasn't a destination, justice wasn't a moment, and love wasn't a conclusion. It was the road itself, and they were walking it, together,